Hey, good afternoon, Quench crew. I am back with another video today. Thought I'd try something new here in the SUV. Lovely sunny day, but thought I would walk you through a movie review I had done, and right out of the theater reaction to the psychology of retirement, about an hour-long movie, and wanted to do the full review. Now, I have copious notes on my clipboard. I'll try not to bore you. Keep it exciting. But I thought I'd start with my origin story in terms of why I'm fascinated with retirement. I would say I started investing, gosh, I want to say around 1994 when I came out of grad school, doing just some individual stocks, some direct stock purchase plans, etc. So I've always been fascinated with investing and worked in commercial lending, learned about banking, and saw really wealthy people, like what their net worth was. So it was always fascinated with investments. But what really did it for me in terms of being fascinated with retirement was I was working for this manager, best manager I've ever had, back in 2016. He came to our team that I was a leader on. He was our director, and basically was like, hey, I'm only going to be managing you all for a year. I'm retiring in 1 year. I'll get my stock options. I'm cashing out, and I'm retiring at the age of 55. Now, at the time, I was 44, and that was like the most powerful thing I had ever heard was, hey, I'm going to retire early at 55. And I didn't know anyone else who had done that, or claimed this is the specific age I'm getting out at. I've got enough. All my kids' colleges are paid off, everything. So his house was paid off. I was just fascinated by the story. So at that point, I met with my financial advisor, like, look, I got a goal. I want to be able to retire by 55. Now, that did not necessarily happen for me, but I'm in a much better shape than I would have been because at that point I had a goal in mind in terms of an age at least. So I think at that point, Lynn and I started investing probably about, I would say maybe 30% of our salary at least, to investments in retirement. So that's kind of the origin story why I'm interested in investing, but more specifically at this age, retirement. So again, Psychology of Retirement was the movie. There were main portions of the movie. I'll say topic one, will you run out of money? Topic two, the retirement journey. Topic three, modern day retirement tools. And topic four, taxes or tax considerations. So, let me preface this. I'm not a financial advisor, so this is information that I took, how I understood it, how I interpreted it from the movie. So don't take this as financial advice. This is just me kind of giving a review of the material as well as maybe my opinion on it from my personal perspective. Before the movie, there was a financial advising company who sponsored it. Everybody got a $15 gift card, so you get your soda, your popcorn, candy, whatever you wanted. He did a quick spiel about his family-owned business. They've been in it, financial advisors, for I think 40 years. So family, his dad owned it. Now he runs it, and I think his wife's involved in it. Some other cousins, in-laws, etc. So he wasn't really pushy in terms of product or having to meet with him. So that was nice. But the first topic, will I run out of money? Most people keep working because they think they're going to run out of money. They're paranoid. And I think part of that is because they don't know what this magical number in terms of a dollar figure they need to retire to live off of. Um, for instance, if you accumulated $250,000 and at the age of 60, can you retire? Can you live off that? I don't know the answer to that. What are your expenses? How, is your house paid for? Do you have a house? Uh, it's a lot of variables to that. So that is what keeps people mostly working. And then another thing is like medical expenses, etc. Maybe they keep working because they need the medical insurance, so that could be a reason. But it's interesting in the movie, some of the narrators were asking just everyday people in various types of jobs, um, how much money do you need saved up, invested, etc., before you can retire? And literally, the range was from a high of 5 million, which in the United States is not necessarily crazy, because everything keeps going up, to a low of somebody said 100,000, and at that point the whole theater erupted laughing at that answer. I think everybody realizes you're not going to make it off $100,000 for retirement. So, and then another thing they stressed in this "Will I run out of money" section was um, what oh, people want to know, like, they want a certain income amount, like kind of like Social Security. If you think about it, you're going to get, let's say the average person gets 1,700 a month off Social Security. Like the narrator was saying, people are more comfortable, instead of knowing this big pot of money, what's the monthly amount that I will get to live off of. So they want that kind of certainty. So that was something they ended that section with. We'll transition now to section 2, which is the retirement journey, and they did a pretty clever analogy. They compared retirement. So you're saving, like going up this mountain. And when you're going up a mountain, you tend to be careful. You're watching your footing. You're making sure the rope is taut, etc. You're pulling yourself up. You're climbing slowly but surely. You're making sure from a height perspective you're good. Your footing's good, etc. But going down, nobody ever thinks of how dangerous going down is. So on the descent, so you've amassed all this money, that's the going up part. Then you go down, and when you go down, that can be dangerous too, because you don't have a guide navigating you that way. So that is where they really talked about it's really helpful if you have at least a plan, kind of a, like if you're going to climb or take this journey, you need to have instructions, a map, etc. You know where you're going. So that's where a financial plan can really be helpful. And they mentioned this statistic. The statistic was only 1 in 5 people have a written retirement plan. So how are you going to know where you're going if you don't have a plan? So it's really important. Make sure you get you a plan. I'm not a financial advisor, but talk to other people who do have them. Get a couple referrals, interview them, ask how they get paid, etc. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but I think it is a good idea to have a plan when you're taking this journey. And another thing they talk about is the modern day role of a financial advisor is more psychological. And I said, yeah, I can see that, because I know I meet with mine at least once a year. And during that conversation, he's asking us about goals. What are your aspirations? And they want to know things like how you make decisions about money, what are your spending habits, how you plan to fund your retirement, and then how you plan to live off the money, or what's the lifestyle you plan to have once you retire. So they need to know all of those things to really help you plan throughout your working lifespan. So the next topic 3, was modern day retirement tools, and they talk about in the past, people had one Social Security that they could live off of, 2 pensions, or now 401ks are more common, and then your savings and investments. So that could be like cash, mutual funds, ETFs, all of that fun stuff these days. Um, so they talk about those, and then they talk about how shaky Social Security is these days. And if you've heard anything recently, at least at the time of this recording, they're saying that the Social Security system will be insolvent by the year 2031. I've heard between 2031, 2033, 2035, somewhere in there. So some people, that's what they count on as their retirement plan, is Social Security. And what they said was, in the past, when they started Social Security, there were 5 workers for every person who retired. Well, now it's much less, because the baby boomers are retiring. So now you got a wave of people getting ready to hit retirement age and retiring now. And there are only 3 workers for every retiree at this point. So, and then the other thing was, back in the day, 40s, 50s, etc., you retired at 65, you only had another 5-year lifespan on average. Now people can live 10 and 15 years longer than the age they retire on average. So the math's not mathing. So I would not depend on Social Security if you're, close to retirement age. Yeah, you may get it, but don't count on it. So anybody younger watching this, don't depend on Social Security because it may or may not be there. So that's one thing they stressed. Let's see what else. Looking at my notes. And then the other thing they talked about just companies in general. They were saying one guy who was interviewed was from Flint, and he said, my dad worked there. I had uncles who worked there, etc. He goes, GM, we never would imagine GM filing for bankruptcy or going out of business or anything like that, or that plant, excuse me, in Flint that they worked at. And sure enough, a lot of those jobs went down to Mexico when NAFTA came. So, in terms of employers, you think about, oh, they'll always be around, they'll have my pension, etc. That's not guaranteed either. Think of a company like Enron, vanished. I think there's another one, WorldCom or WorldStar, similar kind of incident. So companies, you may have your money there and they could be out of business. So you kind of got to have multiple stashes of investments, and don't tie everything up in your employer. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but you want to diversify your portfolio. So read up on it, do your own research. Um, and another stat they said, did you know that 40% of retired Americans rely on Social Security exclusively for retirement? That's huge. And like I said, that may or may not be around in the future. The last topic they talked about were your taxes in retirement. And people don't think about it because a lot of times, especially when you're younger, they say, oh, invest in your 401k. Well, those dollars aren't taxed when you put them in your 401k. But then when you retire and start living off of them, your taxes could equate to like 30% potentially of your capital gains. So you want to be thinking about, before you retire, are there other buckets you want to put that in that have already been taxed, like Roth IRAs, Roth conversion for your 401k, etc. But consult a professional on that before you do anything, because you need to really understand the mechanics of how that works, etc. And then there was one great quote I really liked that one of the narrators said. He said, not taking enough financial risk is like smoking cigarettes. And taking too much financial risk is like doing an insert hardcore narcotic. I don't want to get demonetized. So what he's saying is, the analogy is this: if you smoke cigarettes, it'll kill you slowly. So if you don't take enough financial risk, in essence, that could be a situation whereby you're not going to have enough for retirement. If you take too much risk, it's kind of risk reward. You might have a lot of money in retirement, but you might have zero because you took too much risk. Like, you think about people who worked at Enron, if all they did for their investment or retirement plan was invest in Enron stock, well, that company no longer exists. So that was too much risk. So it could be dangerous that way as well. Both of those effects are very dangerous, and both could kill you. So that's the analogy. But I thought that was kind of brilliant. Um, and everyone really has a risk tolerance. So you got to figure out your risk tolerance, and that's where working with a financial advisor can really help, because they want to understand, how risky are you, how much, are you going to be able to sleep at night if you have a certain style portfolio, etc. So a good financial advisor will help you account for risk um, through market volatility, and think about the times, and shoot, at least in my lifespan, there have been things that were unpredictable in terms of the market, like the dot-com era. The stock market blew up, the subprime mortgage, similar, and then COVID-19 most recently, that really shook up the market. So, and again, an advisor can help you match your risk tolerance with what type of portfolio you should have. So those were, I think, the main points. So I'll play my best Siskel and Ebert. So how would I judge this movie? I will say, if you're a financial novice and really want to understand, kind of be thinking about a financial plan, maybe getting a financial advisor, I'd give it a thumbs up for a novice. If you're a seasoned investor, you've got a financial planner, there's not going to be much they tell you that's going to be aha moments. So probably more of a neutral to, you may not need to look at this movie. You can research things online or talk to your particular financial advisor, etc. So But thumbs up for novices. Probably a pass for anybody who's seasoned and has financial expertise. So that's it. That's my movie. I would say like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Leave a comment. Tell me, if you've seen the movie. One, did you like it? Did you hate it? What were your thoughts? And if anything struck in this video, let me know what did. And if you like doing a video in the car, I wanted to switch up the environment. I don't think I want to sit in the house like Lynn and I typically are. So I want to get outside. It's kind of sunshiny today. Change the scenery, try something different. So that's it. Thanks, Quench Crew. Really appreciate it. And like I said, if leave a comment. Take care. Till next time. Bye.